sister has it. You have that power too.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perron, and joining me, I have James. Say hi, James.
Hello, hello.
Well, we are hitting Star Wars again, as we do usually on regular occasions, but today's a special one that happens every, lately it's been happening pretty frequently, almost every year. Whenever there's a celebration, I've already attended two of them in Orlando. This time around, they went to Anaheim, California, and unfortunately, I couldn't attend. But let me tell you a little bit about how I was able to take advantage of the presentations that they were doing. And this is something that they've expanded on. In the past, they used to have a few things they would put online here or there. And a lot of people, themselves with their own cameras or cell phones or whatever, they would shoot their own stuff and put it on YouTube right away. This year, they did something, I think, in conjunction with Verizon Wireless and StarWars.com, which was basically live streaming a lot of the events. Not all of the events, because remember, when you go to Celebration, there's easily 4, 5, 6, 7 things happening all at the same time. So obviously they can't do that. That's insane. However, with that said, this 4-day event, what they did is they streamed almost 10 hours a day of programming. Now, by programming, I mean major panels, presentations, shows, whatever they happen to be doing, special programming exclusive to this stream. So they would have a whole bunch of different hosts all of a sudden from a location at the convention, usually a set like the Cantina or the Millennium Falcon or something that they built for the people there. They would all of a sudden bring in and interview people, toy manufacturers, guests, stars, cast, crew people. They would just bring them in after their panel or before their panel and come in and do like a 5-10 minute segment with them, which was really cool. It would be exclusive to people watching this. Now, in the past, when I've gone to these conventions, I've explained this, I believe, at previous times. My favorite part is the floor, the dealer floor. And obviously, I'm not there. I can't take advantage of the dealer floor. That's my favorite part, seeing all the toy dealers and all that stuff. But going to the actual panels or presentations, it's kind of difficult. First of all, there's thousands of people there, and some of them are lining up 3, 4, 5, 6 hours before, trying to get in to watch a Mark Hamill panel or whatever happens to be the big event of that convention. In the past, I remember there was the George Lucas, Jon Stewart big event, and people were lining up the previous night to try to get in there. So what they've been doing lately is for these big events, the high-profile events, they will rebroadcast them at the same time, simulcast them on other auditoriums within the convention, so the people that cannot get into the actual event, they can watch it on a huge, screen. Well, what they did here was some of these major events, they were simulcasting them live, streaming them over the internet through StarWars.com and through YouTube. So this is something you guys, if you're interested, anytime, I believe, I don't know for how long they'll keep them up, you can go and view all 4 days. And I'm not kidding. I'm talking about 8 to 10 hours worth of material just streaming. And, it might take you a couple days. I'm still trying to finish up some of the events that I haven't had a chance to see. But let's start going through some of these events, because I've never had a chance, even though, like I said, I've been to these before, I have never seen so many events as I have here from home, on my TV. It's ridiculous. It's like, this is the most I've ever seen of a convention that I've already visited twice. And I did it completely for free. All you got to do is go on the internet and do it. But anyway, let's start off in the beginning, which was on Thursday when they did the opening ceremonies. And the opening ceremonies, a lot of times, that's when they bring out, it depends on the event, but this time around is when they brought out the big guest. And the big guest was some of the cast of The Force Awakens.
Yeah, there's a beautiful picture of the whole bunch of them lined up on the stage.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Including the robots.
Obviously, J.J. Abrams was there. Kathleen Kennedy was there. And some of the things that really off the bat surprised the hell out of me is that they, like you said, they brought the robot, BB-8, I believe his name is.
BB-8. I got to tell you, I thought BB-8 was going to be the death of this. I thought that was Jar Jar Jr.
You remember the teaser, the first teaser that you weren't too hot about, and we were speculating. It's like, yeah, that thing has to be CGI because it is impossible for something to move that way. Well, damn it, they brought it out, and it's a real damn robot, and it moves exactly that way. And everybody's still trying to figure out how the hell is this thing functional? But it is some kind of remote control robot that rolls and floats, and a head floats on top of it. It's amazing. Now, I don't know for sure if maybe for certain battle scenes or super fast motion, they might have to CGI it. But hell, that thing is there. You could touch it. It's ridiculous.
Well, he won me over. I am a fan of his. I love him already. I changed my tune quickly based on that first day's events.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling you might have a slightly different opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I always did say to you, I need to see what the original guys are going to look like. If they look like hell, or if they're in there for like a couple minutes each, and just so their name is on it, so it gives like some street cred that, okay, yeah, we got them, but really this is a different story. No, that would have burned my butt a little bit. But once I realized, okay, there's just, I mean, do we want to talk about the teaser first, or do we want to?
We will, but let me just mention a few little more tidbits that we were at first speculating when we did our first go round at this. One of the things we were wondering was whether or not Boyega's character was a stormtrooper or a guy disguised as a stormtrooper. And during the panel, they confirmed he is a stormtrooper. He wouldn't go into detail as to, well, is he now a good guy? Does he renounce the stormtroopers or something? And he wouldn't go into it. But at least we know that much, and you can kind of piece it together. It's like, this guy's a lead, so this might be interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing that we were speculating about, because we kept seeing all this Tatooine-looking environments and architecture and stuff like that, they mentioned on the panel that planet that you see Ridley riding on her weird motorcycle vehicle, whatever that thing is a planet called Jakku, which is a desert type of planet. It was like, okay, so now we know a little more. We know that.
That makes me feel a little better, too.
There are other desert planets in the universe other than Tatooine. Everything doesn't happen in Tatooine. That whole thing, I think it was about an hour-long panel that they did. They did some Q&As and this and that and the other. They brought out the droid. R2 came out and it was like blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, they were kind of teasing. Oh, one more thing. There was something coming. And again, I was completely surprised and shocked because I could have swore that they would never give us that, at least to the public.
Yeah, I thought for sure they were going to show some scenes, whether it be scenes without sound, some kind of thing. I didn't think we were going to get to see it, and we saw it instantly.
And it's funny because for the people who were streaming this thing live, all of a sudden the picture went to black, and I'm like, okay, that's what they do. Usually when they show the audience something, they black us out so they don't want us to see what they're seeing. But hell no. They showed us teaser number 2, or the B teaser, if you will.
And you were watching this live, correct?
I was watching it live. I was like, holy crap. And I'm texting everybody. I'm like, everybody, you got to go on this website. You got to start watching this right away. I was doing that. So let's talk a little bit about that teaser. Again, it was a short teaser, but now we have a different feel. What do you remember from it?
Well, I hear Luke's voice right away.
Oh, yeah.
And the little bit of the scenes that they were showing.
Right. He's talking about the
Luke's
Force and strong
very
his family.
similar speech that he gave in Jedi.
Right, to Leia and Endor.
I wasn't sure. It could have easily been. I had no problem, even if it was the same speech that they just used as the voiceover. And if it was something new, that's fine, too. But the scenes that were accompanying it and the music were wonderful. And it kind of made me have chills a little bit. And then you see some scenes of, familiar characters, some scenes of characters we've seen in the first teaser.
Yeah.
We see more bad guys. We see more action. I mean, the TIE Fighter hangar was really amazing. And we see stuff really getting going. And then finally, it goes to black, and you think it could be over.
It's
and
the
then
money
you
shot.
Hear, Chewie, we're home. and then it comes back up and you see the faces, and it's Chewie and Han. And
right.
I mean, I don't get emotional. These are movies. I mean, I love them, and we love them, and we have devoted a lot of our time and our life to it. But that brought a tear to my eye even. It was so exciting to actually see them. And once I told you in the last one that I had to see it, I now seeing them, and it was like, yeah, okay, this is Star Wars. And then you could see the Millennium Falcon, and there's the action shot of the Millennium Falcon, being chased, and it just was exactly what you want.
Well, you weren't the only one from what I understand. I mean, again, I was watching it. I was completely, entranced in the trailer. And then, at the end, when they come out, all of a sudden your eyes just water up because you're like, holy crap. I think they might be able to pull this off. You get that feeling. Now, I think for me, at least part of it was the rest of that teaser. There's so many elements that are like right on the money for this. And then when you see Chewie and Han, it's the cherry on top. Even though you're only hearing Luke and you're assuming, because there's a lot of, my father...
They don't have to give you everything, but they have to give you a taste. And for me, the first teaser was 3 people I had no affection for or connection to. So to me, it was just, this is pretty cold in a way. Now this new one was right at your heart, right? It couldn't,
right.
It lit a fire right under you. And I heard grown men saying if they could spend $5,000 to get their ticket to see it right now, they'd spend that $5,000.
Oh, yeah. But we don't see Luke's face. We don't see Leia's face, but we do kind of imagine
we don't have
because,
to yet.
because the visuals were... No. And again, I predict there's probably one more teaser coming before an actual full-blown trailer. Because that seems to be the formula for these kind of movies. You tease, trailer. All of it leading up.
And we will see more. This is the modern era. This is Disney especially. Ultron and all the Marvel movies have had various little teasers and trailers and clips and special giveaways to Jimmy Kimmel and The View and things like that. So we will see more stuff. This is still considered early in the rollout.
But you do have, like I was explaining, this buildup of the trailer of the narrative of Luke saying, my family, my father has the Force, I have the Force.
Well, it's establishing that there's some Jedi and Force, activity, and that's natural. And I think that's a nice callback. I don't care if that appears in the movie. I don't need it to appear in the movie. It's like when you hear the music. There's some music that are callbacks to like A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back, So that's all fine that if it's just a voiceover for this purpose.
What's interesting is that when he says, my sister has it, and then he says, and you have it. Now, the question is he talking to somebody or is he talking to the audience? Which is, again, one of those nice little, maybe it's not part of the movie, just like you said. Now, in this teaser, we see not only the new stormtroopers, these new super advanced looking, which they had on the panel, on that opening ceremonies, they had them all dressed up with the costumes on. They were fantastic. But you also see this almost like a black chrome, like a special stormtrooper, like not only flying like walking with a gun and flying with, and I assume a TIE fighter. You get to see what looks like some kind of an Imperial assembly area for a lot more stormtroopers. And out in the background, you see some kind of, bigwigs all preparing like an army type of thing.
Yeah.
You get to see that in the background.
It seemed more like, like when the Nazis would all get together.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Because there's a lot
some kind of rally.
They use a lot of red and black, which is a very strong Nazi type of, symbolism and colors, which is something that I remember they used also in Return of the Jedi when you had the Royal Guards and the Dark Emperor. You had those, they were playing with colors for you. There are shots of downed Star Destroyers in sand.
Well, you're going to put a link to that, I'm sure. So people who...
Yeah, we're going to play it.
The 3 people in the Western Hemisphere who missed it will be able to check it out.
Let's jump over a little bit because... we kind of knew ahead of time that we weren't going to be too surprised with merchandising as far as Hasbro goes.
Hasbro made it sound like they were going to hide stuff, in fact.
And they made it pretty clear that they weren't going to even be there to have their own like Hasbro area or Hasbro this or Hasbro
empty
that.
Tables where Hasbro would have been.
But they did end up having some minor presence there and some minor, I don't want to call it a presentation, but they had some Hasbro people giving interviews and stuff. Now, what came out of that whole mess, in my opinion, there were only two things that really kind of stand out. They showed us a prototype of the Black Series, which is the 6-inch of the adult Ahsoka from Rebels, I guess. Unpainted prototype looking thing, which is like, okay, that's interesting. That's, I don't know, it's something to look at, I guess, which we haven't seen before. We haven't seen it already in all these other previous conventions we've been talking about. And the other thing they talked about was an Ahsoka Vader 2-pack in the regular size, because that's part of the Rebels line, which is also part of what's going to be happening, I guess, with the second season of Rebels.
And will we see Ahsoka fight Vader?
That's the question that everybody kept dodging.
And will she know who he is? Which
well,
I'm pretty sure
that's
she
a
does.
Whole other. That's a whole other question.
I'd be
it's a
pretty
very
confident
question.
she does, and I'm sure he knows who she is. So I'm sure the way he fought
to.
Ben,
Yeah.
he would say stuff that, oh, you're back. I can, I know all your tricks. Whatever nonsense.
The other toy line that I wasn't planning on even talking about is Hot Wheels, because I'm not a big Star Wars car collector. And recently, you've seen them, James. These new lines.
The Star Wars cars are crap, but I knew they were coming out with actual Hot Wheels metallic versions, and
the die-cast
of the ships. And what you showed me of the Falcon and the classic X-wing look great. So I've heard that they will be making various ships, and as we know, based on like Micro Machines and things like that of the past, they can go on forever. And they've actually done Star Trek ships already a little bit, and they've had quite a variety of those. So we might even see them in different sizes and scales as well eventually, as well as the smaller versions like the Hot Wheel car style.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. And like you mentioned, the old Micro Machines, these are supposed to be, from what I've seen, from the guy handling them and showing you, what they do, they kind of look a little bigger than the Micro Machines in size, slightly bigger. They're almost a little bit like, I don't know if you've seen in the stores for the last couple of years, they've had these, it's like a card game or a game where they have these little ships, kind of like that, a little bit like that. And what's weird, obviously these are all die-cast, so they're kind of heavy, they're kind of, they have some weight to it. And one of the things that they have is that the stand that you place them on has this little circular area, and the guy was showing that you kind of put on this stand on your finger, almost like a ring, so that if you're a little kid or an adult,
you can fly the ships on your ring.
Right, and it can kind of pretend that you're flying, with your hand, because the ship is sitting on your finger with the stand hooked onto your ring finger, basically.
Good, very nice.
That's one of these, I guess, play features that they're using them, which again, I was like, oh, wow, that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. All of a sudden, something new like that to come out. And like you said, they could go hundreds and hundreds of variations of ships and, all kinds of vehicles and yada, yada, yada. The other merchandisable thing that I've noticed that they were talking about is something that I was really not expecting. The novel adaptation for The Force Awakens is going to be written by Alan Dean Foster. Now, James, why don't you tell us who Alan Dean Foster is?
Well, Alan Dean Foster was the ghost writer of the original Star Wars novelization, as well as the writer of Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the first unofficial sequel to Star Wars. Basically, the grandfather of EU.
Right, right.
So he's really a super sci-fi writer. He's a super writer in general. He's had a number of things that the Star Wars fans have even, been fans of. And recently, I think you and I talked about how he seemed to be out of the picture inexplicably. And I guess now we know why. He's not really out of the picture.
Right. And obviously, I don't think it's a big mystery. They're doing this on purpose because they want you to feel that we're returning to the old Star Wars trilogies and the way they used to make those movies. And I guess at this point, how they used to write those books. So they're kind of trying to be very retro about everything, I think, on purpose. That's fine by me. I'm not going to say that I read every book this man has ever wrote, but the fact that they are doing something like that and bringing older people back into the fold, it kind of gives it a little extra oomph to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, the question is, do you think for the future movies they might bring the writer of Empire and the writer of Jedi?
Donald F. Glutt and James
Caan.
James Caan, yeah, not James Caan, the actor.
Right.
One thing I was disappointed in, and surprisingly so, was Lego. Lego was really impressive at the New York Toy Fair and in other situations, and I really thought there'd be something. I didn't expect Force Awakens toys to be shown. It wouldn't have killed them since obviously they showed off many of the props, costumes, and models, but I expected to at least see some new Star Wars product being teased or unveiled, kind of like they do at Toy Fair and Comic-Con. And there was nothing really. They put out this really a little expensive Celebration exclusive that winds up going for like $175 to $200. It was $40 there, and people are jacking up the price. So the average bear won't get it.
And what is that, the Homestead?
Yeah, the Lars Homestead. It was a mini set, like a micro set.
Okay.
And it's cool for kitsch value, but not for $200 just to say, oh, I have it. This is not something that's valuable. And people are just jacking up the price. That happens from time to time. Sometimes then when more people decide to sell it and nobody buys it for $100, $150, $200, they'll lower it. You might get it for under $100 in the near future. I might pay $60 for it for somebody's trouble, but I certainly wouldn't be paying that kind of money. But the only other thing other than that was a 6-poster, supposedly exclusive replica of the original movies, the 6 original movies, in Lego form. And I have those online now. They showed them. I have them on my phone. That's good enough. I would like them, but I certainly wouldn't pay. Some people are charging $100 for them. Really? 6 small pieces of paper for $100 from a convention? I don't think so. They're going to give them away at the Lego store, Lego stores and the Lego shop online eventually, so I'll get mine.
Well, the reason I believe they did those posters is they're in conjunction, in a way, with a new television show that Disney XD is going to be running called Droid Tales. Now, Droid Tales is a Lego animated show similar, done by the same group that did the Yoda Chronicles little TV movies that they've done in the past. That kind of kiddie, funny, very lighthearted. They crosses every single film, they dip into everything. And what they're doing is they're doing a 6-episode special where I believe they're going to go and retell all the movies from episode 1 through episode 6. But they're being done from the droid's point of view or from other people's point of view. So you're going to kind of see all these movies kind of retold, but from a different perspective, in a funny kind of manner, which, again, I don't mind. And they're cute. I like to watch them. I don't want to miss them, but they're going to start doing those sometime soon.
Yeah, that I like. I like those silly little Lego, like the Padawan Menace and stuff like that in the Yoda Chronicles. I do like them, and I do look forward to them.
At one of these panels for Droid Tales, they did show a little snippet of some of what we were going to see, and the ones that they showed, I believe, were episode 4 related clips. Again, it's centric to the droids, so you're going to see a lot of Anthony Daniel, as usual. They use his voice and that kind of thing. So we were able to see a very short snippet, of how that looks like. But like I said before, we are used to that already. We've seen the style.
All these little Lego movies are part of how they look in the Lego video games.
Right. Now, one of the big things that they showed us in stages, because like I said before, you have live stream video, you have, live streaming blogs, is Rebels. They were promoting Rebels Season 2, and even though they weren't able to show us the premiere, because there was a panel where they were premiering, I believe, maybe one or a couple of episodes of Season 2, that was kind of like one of these embargo things that we couldn't see. However...
So some people saw them already?
Some people, I believe, at least got to watch the first episode of Season 2 already, yes.
Wow.
However, they did at least give us the trailer for Season 2, which, as far as I'm concerned, is jam-packed with really exciting stuff. And not only Rebel exciting stuff, but it looks to me like they're now having the opportunity, especially for Dave Filoni, to kind of sneak in and kind of, I don't want to say continue, but maybe...
Well, I don't even want to say sneak.
No,
I think it was right there.
They're in your face to kind of tie up some loose ends from Clone Wars. So let's
we
go
have
over
another
a couple
show
of
to
these.
do because Captain Rex is alive and well, and some of his teammates as well.
That's what it looks like on the trailer. So let's talk a little bit about some of these interviews and panels that Filoni was there, giving us information on Rebels. One of the things that Filoni was mentioning is that he would like to, continue on future Rebel episodes to try to kind of bring in more of the Cantina Kenner action figure aliens so that you have more characters that we're used to, from the original trilogy. So I don't remember, I don't keep track of exactly how many we've seen so far because we've seen quite a number.
Wars, I recall we saw Blue,
the Hammerhead
Snaggletooth,
guys.
and we saw Hammerhead, and we saw red snaggletooth somewhere down the line.
And Greedo-looking guys, Rhodians.
Obviously we saw Rhodians because we saw Uncle Anno or, some other guy was. In Rebels already, we saw another Rhodian in terms of...
How about Walrus Man? Did we see him?
He was a friend of Ezra's family, but I don't recall seeing Walrus Man yet.
Maybe that's who he's hinting at.
Maybe they're going to put the Tanaka twins in there.
Oh, boy. I haven't heard anybody mention that.
A very special episode of Rebels.
Oh, my goodness. The other thing he mentioned that he would be interested in bringing also, again, for a vintagey type of feel, is some of the mini rigs to try to work them into the show somehow, like he did, the Imperial Transport. Now, I know you're not a big fan.
Yeah, well, that was cool with the Imperial Transport, with the mini rigs.
Well, you mentioned Rex a few minutes ago, and he does appear. We're going to talk about the fact that he does appear in the trailer for season 2. And one of the things that Filoni was talking about that is that, we all know and we kind of remember the fact that Rex is aware, when we last met Rex, he is aware that there is something going on, or at least the accusation was made by Fives that there is a chip, a secret chip in probably all the clones that is possibly very dangerous. But at the time, he was kind of conflicted because he was trying to help this guy out, but he wasn't believing him too much. And that whole thing never got resolved as far as Rex. Like, well, where does Rex go from here? And that's one of the things that apparently we are going to be learning very, very soon. He mentioned also that Kanan from Rebels, we're going to find out that part of his history is something that lets us know the fact that Kanan does not like Rex. Rex does something in the history of the show, in the history of Kanan, to make Kanan really dislike him and distrust him. So,
well, here's why. Kanan saw the clones kill his master. So he's going to be prejudiced against, it's like human nature. If you see, a white guy kill your family and you're not white, well, maybe you're going to have a little beef against white people in the future. So if you're a Jedi and your master's killed by the clones who suddenly turned for no good reason on their, on their leaders, well, I can see where that could carry a little bit of, grief for them.
I think this might even be a little more personal. I have a feeling, again, I could be completely wrong here.
They crossed paths in the past?
That maybe Rex might have been part of the group that went after Kanan's master or even Kanan himself.
I find that hard to believe that Rex would have killed people and then suddenly turned. I don't know about that.
Filoni also talked about the fact that, in Rex's life now, he is somebody who, if he did not follow certain orders, he would have been killed himself. So there's something that's going to happen. There's some story we're going to learn about what Rex had to do in order to survive. Let's put it that way. And we'll see where that happens.
Hide.
Right. And we do see him.
And maybe we're going to find the answers to our questions from our show from a couple years ago. What happens to old clones? But didn't they say there were no... That's funny. Didn't they say there were no clones left at the... Didn't somebody say that recently in the past year, that there were no clones left by the original series? And
no,
it turns
they said...
out that
Pablo Hidalgo said that by the time Rebels is around, the Empire is no longer producing clones.
Okay, so he didn't qualify that there were none around.
Right,
okay,
and
good.
The normal clones... They all died out because they expire because of their aging thing. Now, we do see Rex, who looks completely different. He's got a beard. He's bald. He's
he looks like
super
an old
buff.
soldier, an old
Yeah,
salt.
he looks, and he's surrounded by what looks like might be other clones, like
That's what
other
I'm saying.
ex-clones.
Part of his team. I'm interested to see.
So maybe there's something new about these guys that were able to maybe hack their chip so that the fast aging didn't take place or something like that. That wouldn't surprise me if they go in that direction.
You know what? Wouldn't it have been great if they looked like Jeremy Bullock?
That would be...
That would have way to tie it all up,
That's very meta. That's super meta.
Yeah, I'm a deep thinker.
Another cool thing that I noticed in the trailer, and I'm sure you did too, we're going to see A and we're going to see B-Wing fighters.
Well, I love that.
So it's like, oh, that's cool.
That all blew me away. Yeah, we saw early versions of them because all the Rebel ships are ships that are not, the latest models. They're cobbled together from previous eras, let's say. And here we're going to see them in action. So by the time Jedi shows up, they've got some heavy-duty miles on them.
We also get another glimpse at a Clone Wars character returning, Hondo, the pirate. He seems to come back and cause some havoc as usual.
And you know who does the voice of Hondo?
Who is that?
Jim Cummings.
Oh, that's right. I remember you mentioned that once before.
It's always a way for me to tie it in.
We also learned that, and again, this is another sticking point I remember that you mentioned in the past that you weren't too crazy about. Apparently, our heroes are going to be leaving Lothal because there's too much pressure from the Empire because they know they're all hiding there.
Yeah.
So it forces them to go out.
Yeah, there's just so many times I can blow up this police station in my small town before they realize, hey, I think that's James.
Right. So, again, I don't know if it's a permanent thing or if it's maybe they go out for a while and then come back and go back and forth. I'm not sure. We also appear to possibly get a new bad guy, a new possible Inquisitor, because he's holding what looks like the Inquisitor's type of, the rotating lightsaber, the dual-ended rotating one. But he's a different race that I can't exactly put my finger on what kind of race he is. He seems to have like a very mushroomy shaped head. So I'm not exactly sure where we're going with that, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to send new bad guys to help flush them out, and that's one of the new ones that we get to see. We also got to see Vader.
I feel like we saw Vader, a lot of Vader, and the voice of the Emperor.
We saw a lot of Vader engaging in fighting with Kanan and Ezra that looks really like creepy, like dangerously creepy kind of fighting.
We don't know, but it is a tease, and we have had Yoda, and Yoda was more like a dream and stuff like that. So this could be like one of those tests. Who knows if Vader's really going to fight Ezra at that point in the story, but if he does, it's pretty wild.
Right, and we just the same manner that we were wondering whether Vader is going to find Ahsoka, because Ahsoka will return in this season. She's going to make a couple of appearances here or there. Now, here's another one of those callbacks that I love. We saw a shot of what looks like early model AT-ATs that are based on concept drawings.
They're not even just McQuarrie. They might have even been Joe John.
I think they might be Joe Johnston's or McQuarrie's. You're right. And it's the type that looks a little more squat, a little shorter possibly, with
Turtle,
a gun in the back.
armadillo-ish.
Yeah, it's got a gun aiming at the back of the, out of its tail.
I was really impressed with it.
And it's like, man.
I actually still took a picture of it so I could reference it from my old books.
I love it when they do that. I absolutely love it when they grab old stuff and give it back to you. And if you have a good eye, you're like, there you go, there it is. And they mentioned that all the way, that one aspect of this show is going to be heavy McQuarrie influenced stuff, which is perfect. Whether it's Joe Johnston, McQuarrie, any of those guys that you contributed, to the concept of all these ships. Perfect. Keep it coming. I also saw an interview, a quick little interview they did with Kevin Kiner, who is the composer. And he talked about how in this particular show, and we kind of experienced it already, he's able to kind of dip a little deeper into the John Williams themes. Yeah. In Clone Wars, he kind of tippy-toed around it here or there.
Stuff that you know.
Yeah. But here, because we're so close to Star Wars now, to A New Hope era, that he's able to kind of connect it even more. He mentioned also how he was able to borrow certain other themes depending on the episodes in the past. I remember even in Clone Wars, he kind of adapted a Raiders type of march type of sound for an episode they did. It was very adventurous. And he mentioned for Rebels, he's going to be doing that too. He's going to continue to kind of borrow certain themes from other movies and other franchises to kind of throw things off a little. And he mentioned there's going to be an episode coming up where he kind of dips into a little bit of Jaws as far as themes go. So that's a little interesting.
Was it my imagination, or in this trailer did we also see Vader flying his advanced tie?
Oh, I don't know if I missed that. Oh man, maybe. I gotta have to look at it again.
I don't. I saw so much stuff. I feel like I've gotten so overwhelmed between this and the real teaser and some of these video games that came out, which I want to talk about. It's just so much stuff.
Well, speaking of Clone Wars, on one of these panels or blogs, Filoni started talking about the fact that the show kind of ended abruptly in a certain manner, and that they were already working, and we know this for a fact, they were working on future stuff. We kind of got to see some of it already in terms of a comic book. There's a book coming. We saw those animatics in StarWars.com. They apparently showed at the convention also, which they didn't stream this, another little arc or another episode which was full of also animatics and that sort of thing. But he also mentioned that in the whole conclusion of the Clone Wars, if it would have gone to its natural conclusion, the show actually would have gone past Revenge of the Sith, which totally blows me away. I always thought the show was going to end, boom, right at Revenge of the Sith.
And how past? Like, it didn't just bring it up to the door of, like, it would have gone past the end of the movie?
Well, he said it would have gone long enough to go past Sith so that we can see a conclusion or a more proper ending for Ahsoka and the clones.
Will we see any of that, or will there be a book that, I mean, I would love to read, let's say a novel of the story. We don't have to see it. I mean, I can imagine it.
I think, and again, he didn't say this, but I think that this is what's happening with Rebels now. We're seeing Rex. We're going to see his conclusion. We're going to see what direction he goes. We already saw Ahsoka. We're kind of seeing what direction Ahsoka goes to. So I think he's going to be allowed to kind of dovetail all these unresolved stories into Rebels, which is great. Plus the stuff that's happening off to the side. Remember, we have a Ventress, I believe, Quinlan Voss novel coming out, and we've had all these other little mini episodes and comic books and stuff to kind of tie up some of these stories. But I have a feeling, remember, Ahsoka is a big, big character for him. He basically pretty much created her, more or less.
Yeah. That's his.
Rex is his boy. Rex is that's his guy.
Rex was the face of all the promotion and the packaging and stuff like that.
So I think for those type of characters, he was able to, in other words, he couldn't bring all the characters back. He couldn't tie up all the stories into Rebels, but the big ones are coming. And again, Ahsoka's already here and we're going to see more of her. And now we're going to get a Rex tie-up story, most likely, to see where all that goes. The other thing about Clone Wars is that he also mentioned that in one of these stories that were never also completed, that I think it was in animatics forms, that there was an Utapau arc. Again, I remember seeing it in StarWars.com, where it had to do with the Kyber crystal being found and the Empire looking for it. He says that that story would have gone into the Kyber crystal being used in a way to help power the future Death Star. So they were going to give the Kyber crystal, which we know some people are kind of tying them to lightsabers. It was going to have an evil purpose too, in a way. And he also said, again, speaking of favorite characters, that there's a good chance that Embo might make an appearance in Rebels.
Oh, Kyle's favorite.
So again, there was a little kid who was asking him, will Cad Bane be in Rebels? And he was like, well, I can't have everybody show up, but don't be surprised if you see him. No, I think he's one of these returning type of characters. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to have another story. He was supposed to have a story with Boba Fett, with young Boba Fett. As he was supposed to kind of take him on as an apprentice type of thing, teach him the how to be a good bounty hunter. But again, that's one of those stories.
Yeah, I thought Cad Bane was cool at first, and then I feel like, all right, enough of him. Let's move on to the real, because they started showing Bosk. And Bosk,
yeah, it was one of those seasonal pushes.
I felt like we could have moved past Cad Bane. Cad Bane is more in the line with Zero the Hutt.
I don't know about that. Anyway, let's move on to another gigantic, enormous reveal, if you will, that I completely did not expect.
Me neither.
Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One Anthology. This is the subtitle for the Rogue One, I guess.
I think it's listed as Star Wars Anthologies, and the title then is Rogue One.
In other words, what they mentioned is that in order for people not to just call them spin-offs or standalones, it's like this is all part of an anthology series. And Rogue One is the first one, and the plot apparently will deal with rebels, young rebels, I guess, who are out on a mission to steal the Death Star plans that lead to Star Wars.
It's a war movie. It's a combination of the Big Red One and probably like the Dirty Dozen.
Well, that's one of the things they mentioned. They mentioned that this is you're going to get a different flavor, a different feel. There are no Jedis in this story. This is just rebel soldiers, very reality, very gritty war movie feel to it.
I saw some artwork in addition to the actual teaser.
Right. They did show that a little bit. They showed some of the artwork. And in a way, if you think about it, maybe this is remember when George Lucas was talking about the TV show that he wanted to make, the live action show, and how he wanted it to feel like Band of Brothers type of show? Yep. Maybe this is part of what he was talking about, this kind of gritty, more looking thing.
Well, the best part about this was the reveal of the Death Star, like hanging over the planet.
Right. Once again, we're dealing with teasers here. The teaser for this one is Obi-Wan's speech from, for over 1,000 years, the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
and
the same thing like Luke, taking the key lines and really making them powerful.
Right, exactly. And you see, I think you see a TIE fighter flying around, some treetops, foresty treetops, and as it flies up in the air, you see the skyline, the horizon, and it's a huge Death Star. So you're obviously on a planet that is orbiting the first Death Star. And that's, everybody just went completely nuts. Now, they showed this in a private screening, a private panel.
VIPs only or something?
No, not VIPs, but you had to go to that panel. And unlike the second teaser for Force Awakens that immediately went online for everybody to see, and they showed it to everybody, this one only went onto YouTube from, I guess, somebody or some people who were shooting it. So that's the only way that we were able to see it. So it's not officially out there yet. It will be hopefully in a couple of weeks. You know, if you want to see a really good quality version of it.
Yeah, this was Gareth Edwards. Who's the other guy who couldn't make it? Like, what is his movie, or what was his? Is his that one that involves the bounty hunters or something?
I'm not sure. It might be the bounty hunter one, but that's the guy who directed Looper, I think. The second guy. This is the guy who directed Godzilla.
I didn't know what he was supposed to be there to sell, so I don't really know what I don't know what I'm missing.
No. This was just Gareth Edwards because that's the first guy, you know, who's getting the first movie that's coming out next year. I mean, this is December of 2016 already that this thing is going to be coming out. Another little tidbit about this particular movie is that, I don't know if you knew this, but the story was originally pitched by an ILM guy. His name is John Knoll, who's been in ILM forever. He's a big shot in ILM.
Yeah, I know his name.
And he pitched the story, and they're like, you know what? That sounds like a good story. Let's do it.
That's great.
And that's how they developed it. It was from one of their own guys, which was wonderful.
A veteran.
Two more quick things I want to mention before we wrap up here. One of them is, even though I'm not a big gamer, I'm not into, you know, video games or any stuff like that.
Yeah, the only ones I play are the Lego ones.
Right. They're releasing a new Battlefront game. If you guys remember the Battlefront games we used to play on the PC, I believe. Well, there's a new one now coming out that if you look at the trailer is like a movie. And we've seen these type of trailers before. They completely blow things out of the water in terms of how amazing these trailers look.
But they're all CGI, but they're fantastic.
They're amazing. And this one is, you know, you get to play in Endor, you get to play in Hoth, and apparently you also get to play in Jakku, this new desert planet that ties into the movie.
Did you see the two things that come out of that scene?
Well, I remember seeing the bombing of the AT-AT, and then Vader walks out of there.
No, here's what I want you to focus on.
Which one?
The Star Destroyer that's crashed already in the Star Wars The Force Awakens teaser.
We're supposed to learn the story.
We see it happening in the Battlefront trailer, as well as the return of not dead Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, that's right. Now,
real Boba Fett.
Now, are we to believe canon-wise that because it's on the game, it's okay?
Well, he's alive. He's fact. It's God. the canon is God.
You know, I love the little mini movies that they create for these games. I honestly don't have the patience to play them, but I would love to just watch all these little in-between movies.
They call those cutscenes. And in the Lego games, after you've played a little bit, you can basically unlock those, and you can watch all the cutscenes in order, which is almost like a mini Lego movie of any whatever it is, Batman, Star Wars, Hobbit, whatever. So if this Battlefront works in the same way, it might behoove you to invest a little money and time and see if you can watch this, because you're missing out on it unless people put them on YouTube.
I remember seeing a few years ago like little clips like this for like Old Republic games where
they're awesome.
They're incredible. It's like they're ridiculous.
There's a whole era of stuff I have no clue what Darth Nihilus you know, all these guys. I don't know what they really do because I'm
more interested in those little mini movies than actually reading some of those books.
Yes.
The last thing I want to mention is the closing ceremonies, which they usually have, and they usually replay everything again. You know, they replay all the trailers and all the big highlights of the thing, and they did that, except for obviously Rogue One. Like as I mentioned before, they gave us some kind of excuse that no, it was only for one group. We couldn't really show it again. We actually had to take the projector and take it away so nobody could see it. So everybody was like, oh, whatever. So they did show some of the art, you know, some of the concept art that you mentioned, James, before, and they did the reveal for when the next celebration is, and that's usually when they do it at the end of the whole closing ceremonies. And it turns out that the next celebration will be in July of 2016 in London, which It's a little disappointing, obviously, for anybody who's here in the States who always wishes they would just stay here and they would do it here. But I kind of understand the mentality behind it. It's like, you got these movies now that are going to be coming up every year, year after year. This is an international event. This isn't a local thing anymore. So I have a feeling they're doing it on purpose now. They're probably going to alternate. I'm just guessing here that they're probably going to alternate between a foreign one and a domestic, foreign and domestic. So they've already gone to London once before. They did it in 2007. They went to Japan once. They went to Germany very recently also. So I have a feeling that's how it's going to work. Maybe next time they'll go to New York. Maybe they'll come back to Florida. Maybe they'll go to some other state they've never been to. But I think you're going to always get a foreign city in between just to keep all the foreign fans happy. And you know what? I could be greedy about it. And it's like, no, me, only me. I understand, yes, I get that, but you know what? It makes sense to spread it around, especially it's every year. If these things are coming every year, it's a lot of work, even for yourself, just to get enough money to go to these things. Like for example, this one was in California. I couldn't go to California. It's too expensive to go out there and do this whole thing. If they come to Florida, great. I'm already here. Wonderful. Or some local area, that would be great. But, for me or for a lot of people, I know that it's going to have to be a local event if it's within your range. Now, if you have the capabilities to hop on a plane, go to London, go to Germany, great. That's wonderful. Go and do it, because they really, do everything that they do for these kind of conventions when they go overseas. And you do get the same kind of exclusives, and they have reveals and they have announcements. Probably not as huge as when they do it here. But, I'm looking forward to these future ones. And I'm, again, very happy with everything I've heard and I've seen. And keep in mind, I have not finished watching everything. 10 hours a day. It is insane the amount of programming they put out. I still have probably another 6 hours to go of watching some other panels that I missed. But I recommend that everybody, if you have the time, they'll be there. Watch them. How about you, James?
Well, this was an amazing week because I expected a couple surprises, and I feel like I was blown away on a few of them.
Exactly.
And there was a couple things, like you said, we didn't expect, at all, and then bang, there it was. And then crammed in between it was the Batman Superman teaser, whatever that is, the potential for a post-credits Ultron surprise, and all this other stuff. It's just, what a week, man. What an exciting week for fans. It's like, usually it's Comic-Con or, one of the Toy Fair or something that blows you away. This really lived up to its hype.
I was just sitting here watching and forwarding people links like a mental patient. I was just sending stuff out, watching, making notes for the show. I was in complete Star Wars mode. And like I mentioned before, I've been to these conventions, but I think I've seen more of the actual convention during this presentation than I have when I went there on my own. A couple of grand, actually. And that's without the stuff that I end up buying there. Just the trip, just the plane and the tickets and all the things associated with a trip like that. I got it all for free, and please take advantage of it. If this is how they're doing them in the future, perfect. I can't go overseas. If they stream them live from Germany or from London, that's exactly how I'll be watching it.
Well, if this is the quality of how Disney is handling Star Wars, which it seems to have surprised many people that they're really so thorough and fan-friendly, I would like them to do a Pixar celebration. I'd like them to do a Marvel celebration.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine that?
And maybe a general Disney celebration, which is kind of like what D23 is.
Yeah, D23 kind of does that a little bit.
This really set the bar high for future conventions. And, next year's Star Trek convention, I really hope they take some notes here on how it was handled. Shatner was already goofing on it a little bit. So hopefully they are able to blow us away with something with Star Trek related.
Sounds good. Again, for a convention that I did not get to attend, I had a ball. I had an absolute ball. So, as usual, I want to thank James for joining me today, talking about our favorite subject in the world, Star Wars. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you guys for listening, and we will see you here next time at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Through the Force, things you will see, other places, the future, the past, old friends long gone. Okay, hit it!
For 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
You were the chosen one!
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor.
You're under arrest, Chancellor.
Who am I?
That boy is our last hope.
It's not wise to upset a Wookiee.
Crush them!
I am a Jedi. Like my father before me.
Use the Force, Luke.
Don't you call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease.
I like to see the buttons bouncing.
This is Carlos speaking. No, me. Only me.